So hello and welcome, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Amber.
Uh, We're going to have a conversation about adult ADHD and how it impacts parenting a child with eating disorders. And I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'll ask to learn a little bit more about you, Carolyn. So, once again, my name is Amber, and I am an ADHD coach as well as therapist. And I work with adults specifically, and I help them through any kind of process as far as feeling stuck, procrastinating, lack of motivation, difficulties with focusing. So, I help adults through quite a bit of symptoms related to ADHD. And then I also love working with parents as much as I can. So a lot of the adults are also parents, and sometimes that there's a genetic component to ADHD. So sometimes I recognize the adults I'm working with are also having children who are struggling with ADHD and other mental health issues.
Yeah,
So, yeah, Carolyn, tell me a little bit about you personally and professionally.
yeah. So my name is Carolyn McCarter Wood, and I am located in Asheville, beautiful Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains. I'm a native of these mountains. I'm like the first in my family to ever go to college, and it took me a while to get stopped going to college. I have a Master of Divinity and a Master of Social Work. So while I was in my social work program, my daughter, who was then 12, developed a pretty severe eating disorder, and that was a battle with for our family for close for 15 years. And so, as a result of, she's fine now, by the way. Um, but as a result of that, I ended up going in a therapy direction that I hadn't anticipated, and that is working with families and individuals who are impacted with eating disorders. And so I've been a therapist for over 10 years working with eating disorders, and I'm a certified eating disorder specialist. And then a couple of years ago, said, hey, I want to be a resource and a coach to the parents who are trying to help their kids overcome eating disorders and maybe have a little bit less of kids having to be sent away for recovery. And so I founded CMW Consulting and Coaching, and my coaching program is called Spoonful of Courage. And I right now work individually with parents whose kids have eating disorders.
Nice. Awesome. And I know we've talked a little bit before we started recording. And one thing that I didn't share up front is that I am also an individual with ADHD. And then, Carolyn, you said that one of the struggles that you found when your daughter had was working through her eating disorder journey was that you were also struggling with some.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not diagnosed until I was in my mid 30s. Um, and it's the type that women often have, the inattentive type. Um, but anytime you're dealing with a major illness, which an eating disorder is, it requires a lot of time and attention. And time and attention are not the two easiest things.
I 100% agree. Yes.
Yeah.
We have that time blindness and then like attention, especially if
Mm-hmm.
things are stressful. I notice a lot of adults with ADHD, we want to go where the dopamine is. We want to go away from the stress and focus on things that feel good more than and feel more motivating to us. So it
Yeah.
really is hard to
Yeah. Yeah.
have that constant attention on helping other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was really, really good at looking for help for my daughter. Because I think we tend to be a little more like hunter and gatherers.
Yeah.
I was really good at the research and the looking for help, looking for someone else to help, but didn't have a lot of guidance on a lot of guidance on what not to do, but not a lot of guidance on what to do to help my kid.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about so You said that you've had challenges yourself, kind of staying focused on helping your daughter the best that you could when she was going
Mm-hmm.
through her eating disorder. But what other challenges do you see with the parents that you work with who are helping their children? And
Right.
do you work with a lot of parents who also have ADHD while helping their children with eating disorders?
I'm trying to think if I have worked with a lot who have
Or
ADHD. Um, and I won't necessarily say that that is the case, but what I will say is that we um, we function in our society at a very busy level, and we want our kids to get better, and we want our kids to get better fast.
yes.
And a lot of times, like I said, if you are going to actually help your kid get better, which is considered most of the time the gold standard first line treatment for eating disorders is something that's called family based treatment. And it's basically an outpatient form of treatment, which means that you're getting coached on helping your kid get the food they need and avoid the behaviors. So you're kind of doing what would happen, except for all the groups and all that, you know. That takes a lot of time, and it takes uh, it the way that we live on the fly in our society doesn't work that well.
Yeah, the fast food, fast everything culture. Yes.
Yeah, they figure it out as we go, because for many kids, my particular area where I know the most is around helping families whose kids have restricting type disorders.
Okay.
Um, that puts them in so much anxiety, like not knowing when the next, when are we going to eat, or what are we going to eat, things like that spikes their anxiety. And when their anxiety is spiked, it's even harder for them to eat. So it's you don't have to become a June Cleaver, but we need some ways to not fly by the seat of our pants, which is kind of my natural way to roll.
Mine too sometimes. So what you're speaking of is like having coaching parents to have a structure and almost like kind of an outlined menu list or
Mm-hmm.
outline of what's going to be for breakfast, lunch,
Right,
or
right.
snacks, so that
Mm-hmm.
that can help decrease the child's anxiety if they have
Right.
restrictive type eating, and it can give kind of a structure
Mm-hmm.
the week and structure
Right.
to the day as well.
Right. And for me, for example, like meal planning is the bane of my existence. There's so many options. And oh
Yeah.
my God, like, oh, wait, we can look on this recipe and that recipe and whatever. And so when my daughter was in treatment, one of the biggest gifts that one of the dietitians gave us was to a way to manage that. And this was when my daughter was at a closer level of recovery. Early on, we're going to have parents pretty much take over everything and say, all you have to do is eat what's presented.
Okay.
Um, we're not going to have the kids helping make decisions about food, or help with the grocery shopping, and because all of that creates such anxiety for them. But later, like this dietitian, she presented us with a box, a lovely little woven box, and each of us, you know, would write down on note cards some of our favorite meals. Of course, they had to be meals that were nutritionally adequate, and you could pretty much tell which ones she had submitted. And then, like once a week, we would pull those cards for dinner, and then it it eliminated a lot of the stress. The other thing that wasn't in existence that I just thought of that is here now are meal kits. You know, that arrive at your door. Oh my gosh, if I had had those, it would have been so much easier in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to be. The point is not making gourmet or fancy meals
Mhm.
all the time. The point is just, you know, adequacy and consistency, and often uh, meals, and going against that urge to prepare what you know your kid will eat easily. Instead, you prepare what what they used to love,
Okay.
and what might be challenging for them too
Mhm.
sometimes, because otherwise we kind of keep the eating disorder kind of simmering on low.
Yeah, and the restriction and the
Mm-hmm.
narrowing down what foods can actually be eaten till
Mm-hmm.
it's like a list of this many things. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It tends to do that. And if you value harmony, as I do, that's the easiest. I mean, that's the biggest temptation, is to just keep adapting and adapting,
Mhm.
um, which is another, I think, gift that folks with ADHD have, is the ability to adapt.
Be
And we,
flexible. Yes.
mhm, we have to watch out that we're not being overly flexible.
Yeah, you mentioned some great things. So, absolutely, there's that. So, the tendency for an adult with ADHD is to not have the structure and to have get overwhelmed sometimes by too many choices and just cater to what you know is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But for helping a child with eating disorders, it really is more about providing structure, a variety of options, but also making it easy with those recipe cards. Um,
Right.
and do you coach parents on? So if it's a meal that the child or a teenager is like not into, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want to eat, but it was the card that they pulled, do you coach parents how to handle that in the moment and how to help
Yeah.
build at the table?
Well, I would say early on,
Mhm.
early on, the kid may have not really had any input. You know, that's a little bit more of a more advanced kind of skill. But the agreement is, you know, whatever card is pulled, that's what we're having, because this was a previous agreement. Um, any any negotiating uh, is really not helpful. So this is why early on in the treatment, in a parent helping a kid overcome an eating disorder like anorexia or bulimia, um, the thing is, all you have to do is eat it. You don't have to, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. It sounds so nice that they don't really respond in that way. And so then the other thing that's really interesting about eating disorders is, you know, how we are kind of, people with ADHD, we are looking for the dopamine.
Mhm.
Dopamine is hard to find when you have anorexia, for example. Rewards
Mhm.
are not very effective, because their brains are more oriented toward risk, right? And for them, the risk isn't, oh, the bad things that will happen because of the eating disorder. It feels like the food is risky.
Mhm.
So you can't reward, uh like like you know, we kind of go for reward,
Yeah.
not so with anorexia.
Mhm. Yeah, and it really it's kind of also that a little bit of the time blindness too. Like we can't
Mm-hmm.
think about way in the future. We just know that right now this doesn't feel comfortable. This doesn't feel rewarding. This food feels risky. It doesn't feel safe. I'm not sure if I want to put it in my mouth or my body. Yeah,
Right.
it really is one of those things that it's hard to find motivation and rewards in those moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for someone who may have a different kind of thinking pattern, food is nutritious, food is fuel, food is healthy for our bodies, it keeps our bodies moving. But those thoughts sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, those thoughts are often warped or skewed.
Exactly, they are. And that did bring to mind another challenge that can come up when you have ADHD
Okay.
and you're parenting a kid. And that is with parenting a kid with an eating disorder, is that it comes into our mind and comes straight out of our mouth, right?
The no filter impulsive talking.
Yes, yes, because this is where it's so important for us to look at our own beliefs around foods and our own how we've been impacted maybe by diet culture. Because when we say things like, "Oh, this is healthy," or "This is good for you," we are reinforcing the good food and bad food kind of thing, which gets really, really blown up
Black
in
and
with.
white.
Mm-hmm. Um, Also, if we go like, "Oh, I got to go walk off that brownie," if even if we're talking about ourselves, um, then it kind of triggers that eating disorder type of thinking. So um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, we're going to do it,
It's
but it's not about, it's less about don't say that in front of them. It's more about let's do some mental hygiene for ourselves.
mhm.
How are these ways that I think about food and body and size and weight not only wouldn't be good for them, but are they really good for me?
Mhm.
Right? Because it's only, I think, by shifting the way we think about it that it becomes easier to filter.
Mhm. Yeah, I like how you said mental hygiene. it,
Yeah.
and parents are gonna slip up, and maybe some of that is how they think about themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
as individuals with ADHD, and if it is an adult with ADHD, there's a lot of times a lot of shame and wanting to fit in, feeling like something's wrong with us, and then you know
Yeah.
in that language of shame and guilt can come out with regards to food.
Yeah. Come out in any way. And the saving grace is that saying, going back and saying, you know, "I'm sorry. I realize I said this. That wasn't good for either one of us." Just being willing. Again, this is about that overcoming that shame. Sometimes parents, I have a client right now that I'm working with that she, for the longest time, her kid doesn't have an eating disorder, but for the longest time, she thought that ever saying "I'm sorry" to her kids indicated weakness. And so she didn't.
Mhm.
And now she's learning that when she can say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong about this,"
Mhm.
that it actually creates a more trusting relationship between her and her kids.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. It's compassion and connection is prioritized above, all the shoulds that we have.
Yeah, the over rightness. Yeah,
Yeah, over perfection or
yeah,
rightness.
yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely I went through a coaching program specifically for working with children with ADHD, and that compassion and connection instead of shaming, shoulding, telling your child what to do, sometimes meeting
Mm-hmm.
them and talking about it as not as I don't want to say we don't want to lose the dynamic of parent child, but talking
Right,
to help them problem solve and learn how to problem solve for them.
right. As kind of mentor, and
Yeah,
yeah, as opposed to, the, the shamer. Yeah,
the
yeah.
shamer. But,
One of the other things that I'm thinking about that comes up for a lot of us with ADHD is that it's not easy to be neat.
mm,
And some of us put a lot of energy into that, like, that fitting in.
yes.
And just to say that, you know what, in this time when your kid is ill,
Mhm.
it's okay to let some things go, and look at where your priorities are. And, um, you know, if your kid is getting the medical care they need and, maybe seeing their therapist and they're getting their 3 meals and 3 snacks,
Mhm.
and sometimes it takes an hour to get that meal in and you've got dishes piled up and the laundry's not folded, so be it,
Yeah,
you
give
know?
yourself permission to let it go. Yes, or
Yeah,
to ask for help
yeah.
or hire help if you can.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I say, think about it like, what if your kid had cancer? What
Mhm.
would you let go of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that means letting go of, I mean, like, it can get a little boring. This is the part that's a little hard, is it can get a little boring.
Mhm.
3 meals, 3 snacks every bleeping day. Um, Cutting back on some of the activities that we used to do,
Mhm.
um, that we're interested in. Um, it can be hard, but it is so worth it and temporary.
Yeah, this go, go, go culture of constantly doing and going and not sleeping enough, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down and really focus on helping your child with mental health issues. It's opposite of what a lot of parents are doing. I see a lot of parents keeping their kids active, keeping their kids involved, but yet everybody's so busy they're not connecting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that is another good point, is that often, we get, and when I say we, I mean we, because I'm a parent of an adult now, but when she was growing up, I was very proud of her accomplishments and things like that. It's very hard for us to say no to things that are that we're excited about, and things that maybe our kids enjoy. It could be like sports or things like that. It feels like we're taking something away from our kid,
mhm.
and we know we don't like to have things taken away. I mean, like, I do not do very well with no, uh, but it is, again, so important, and often, like, what would you do if your kid had cancer?
Mhm.
Would you try to keep them you know would you try to keep them from missing out on things? Probably not. You would prioritize,
Mhm.
we're going to get you well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And prioritize what's most important. And I
Mm-hmm.
often say, especially for individuals with ADHD, finding your why. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing it? And like when things get boring, when we get unmotivated, finding your why. And especially for parents in this situation, finding your why is I want a healthy child. I want my child
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
successful as an adult. Um,
Right.
I want
I
to,
don't want my I don't want my kid to, so, like, eating disorders, particularly anorexia, is the second most lethal of all mental health disorders.
Mhm.
It used to be the first until the opioid epidemic, and death due to opioids made this change.
Mhm.
So it's it's very lethal, although most people don't die. But the other thing that we don't want is somebody to go into adulthood saddled with this lifelong burden.
Yeah,
Right.
lifelong struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's super, super important to put the time and attention to it.
Mhm.
And it can be it can be tempting and easy to kind of turn a blind eye to things, instead of um, staying on this kind of, like I said, it can get boring. And that's why I think finding your why is so important. I want my kid to have a shot at an adulthood that's not hampered by these thoughts and obsessions, or and also the possibility of the long-term physical consequences.
Yeah, and that can be that why is almost sometimes like a mantra when you're like, oh, I don't want a meal plan again. Oh, I don't, this is too much work. And remind,
This is not fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the times that you can remind the
Mhm.
parents or we as adults can
Mhm.
remind ourselves, why am I doing this again? Oh yeah, I want my
Yeah.
child to
And
be up for success. Mhm.
and I think that a lot of times parents may think that it means, oh my gosh, I have to prepare every single, you have to plan the meal. It doesn't mean that you physically have to make it. It can include takeout. It needs to be planned, especially early on.
Yeah.
Later, it can be, part of what we want to help a kid develop is the flexibility of the surprises. But that's a little bit more of an advanced skill, especially if we are in the process of refeeding a starved brain.
Mhm.
But takeout can be a part. Uh, Family friends bringing food in, kind of like, I've never thought of this before. Oh my gosh! But like, are you familiar with the meal train? This happens among my colleagues and at church. Like if somebody has a baby or somebody is sick, they organize a meal train.
Mhm.
You could, a lot of times people don't know how to help, but a meal train might be a great option because then you could have things in the freezer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have it proportioned
Mm-hmm.
and frozen and easily
Mm-hmm.
heat up in the microwave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means overcoming the shame about your kid having an eating disorder. And that's one of the things that it's really important for me to let parents know is that there is no evidence at all. They tried to find it, like what is it about these families that caused this kid to have an eating disorder? It wasn't there. You
Yeah.
know,
Not
it's
one thing. No, it's
mm-mm,
a complicated, complex issue. Yes.
it is. And so for a long time, parents were blamed. Um, and there's still a lot of that kind of rattling around,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not based in fact any more than at one time they said that they thought that schizophrenia was caused by uh, a refrigerator mother. And now we know
Yeah.
differently. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness for science that keeps evolving and keeps helping
Thank
things.
goodness for science. As a matter of fact, somewhere between 50 to 80% of the risk is genetic.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not, so it really sounds like you work with parents a lot with their mental hygiene, as you said, to help them get rid of that shame themselves and also help with using language to help their children get rid of that shame and guilt.
Right. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And then it sounds like you also give them kind of emphasize the structure and how to make structure easy with those recipe cards.
Yeah. Right. Structure-ish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's what my I am
Structured flexibility.
structured. But when it comes to sitting down with their children at the dinner table, that is like we are eating. There's no ish. It is structure
Yes.
and
Yes.
have
Yes. And for a kid that's early on, they may, it it may take a while. There are parents that have sat with their kids for hours, and I kind of have mixed feelings about that, but I think that eventually that part, that the eating disorder part, as we like, in family-based treatment we externalize the eating disorder. It's like it's not you, it's your eating, it's the eating disorder. It needs to understand that this is that it has bumped up against a hard boundary, that there is no way around it. And it sucks. The good thing about having ADHD is we like to have fun, right? So this is where things like playing Would You Rather or other things like that at the dinner table can be really helpful.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather do this or that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Or playing you know, like we used to have sometimes use Trivial Pursuit cards at the table or things like that. because what we have to watch out for, what for me is like hyper focus. My kid had an eating disorder, and it became like the only thing that I could think about with my kid. You
You
know,
lost yourself in
yeah. So being able to have just like light, normal conversation can get hard sometimes. So doing things at the meals that are not focused on talking
Mhm.
only about the food and the eating disorder is really helpful.
Yeah, there's some great card decks out there. I know
Yeah.
it's like icebreakers, conversation starters, because it can get so stressful at the dinner table. And if you have a family that says put the phones down, let's talk
Mm-hmm.
to each other, then you got to come up with what do you talk about.
Mm-hmm. And this might be a time when you get a little bit lenient with that. You know, it might be a time when, if a kid has a favorite show, this might be a good time to watch the show during, maybe they do that during lunch, maybe not during dinner or whatever,
Yeah.
because just especially during the early part of refeeding a kid, because you're not it's not normal eating. You're having to eat more than a kid would typically want to eat, and so distraction is not a bad thing during that time. It's kind of like when my husband gets blood taken.
Mhm.
He just chats up the nurse, and he'll say, I'm talking to distract myself.
It's real. Yeah. Yeah. And so for parents and for children, having that creativity within meals and having some fun, whether it's chatting or television
Mm-hmm.
shows or conversation. Yeah, that distraction can relax the body, I imagine, which decreases the stress and helps.
Exactly. Um, when we're in anxiety, we're kind of in fight or flight. And one of the things that happens when we're in fight or flight is our bodies go, oh, no need for the digestive system. You
Yeah,
know,
all your blood is at your extremities. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
finding ways to manage our own anxiety so that we can help co-regulate our kids
Mhm.
is super important. And again, anxiety goes a lot with having ADHD, because we're kind of used to being like a day late and a dollar short or whatever, getting caught without what we need. So
I'm
finding
always
ways to
running
self
behind. I'm running, but I'm behind. Yes.
yeah. So finding ways to regulate ourselves, um, that makes such a difference in making it easier for our kid to be regulated.
Mhm.
And also, um, sometimes the kids get really nasty because
Mean.
they're going to get mean.
Mhm.
And some of it is because like I'm probably going to get mean if there's a dangerous barking dog at me. I'm going to be like, get away from me.
Yeah.
And kids get like that. And so having some ways to respond, not react.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
Absolutely. Because it's not about you, it's about their own struggle sometimes and they're wanting power or control.
yeah. Yeah, because I don't know if this is like, maybe this will be um, this may be an ADHD thing. I hadn't thought about it. Like when I don't get my way, I don't, with my husband, I don't really like it. And I will, so like I might propose something that I know he's going to say no to. And I've already had the conversation with myself about, he's probably going to say no to this. And, we can be flexible and blah, blah, blah. But when I get the no, I'm like,
Yeah, flexible thinking. That's an executive functioning skill that is a lot more challenging for individuals with ADHD. When we have our mind set on
oh
something,
my
like
gosh.
we're flexible
Yeah.
in many ways, but like when we have our mind set and we don't get our way, it can be very hard to change things.
That's, I hadn't thought about that. It's like, I was like, why am I like this? And now,
Yeah,
oh, that's why.
and those are moments to be like, oh, I'm doing that again. Okay, how can I find a win-win, or how can I,
Mhm.
how can I still get a little bit of what I want and give him a little bit of what he wants. So
Yeah.
it is sometimes hard. And as it relates to children with eating disorders, it sounds like up front, you want to be very structured and kind of very boundaried with helping them get back into a routine. But then later on, and that's when they're going to push against you
Hmm.
because they don't like boundaries. But
Right.
later on, you can be
It,
a little more
yeah.
flexible with them.
And it feels like that you're violating their boundaries. It's like a kid going, my body, my choice. But the fact is that it is our responsibility as parents to ensure that our children are well and taken care of. It's neglectful not to. And so we have to stay rooted in that why, because it can feel really weird to be telling a 14-year-old what to eat. It
Mhm.
can feel, and you're going to get pushback um, from the kid, and you're also going to get pushback from society, who's going to misunderstand you as over controlling
Right.
it.
Right.
Because you would be over controlling if you were controlling your kids' food that strongly and they didn't have a need for it.
Mhm. Yeah, but there's a medical need and there's a mental
Mm-hmm.
health need to help your child in these moments.
Right.
I really love your family approach and your family coaching approach to this, because it's not about dropping off your child somewhere and having them be fixed. It's
It
about
won't work. I will tell
work.
you. That's what they had us do,
Yeah.
and we weren't given, we were told to not comment on what she ate, not notice what she ate.
Mhm.
So she would get sicker and sicker, then she would go to treatment, she would come back home, she would get sicker and sicker, she would go to treatment.
Yeah.
It doesn't work because they have to face these fears
Mhm.
all day long.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's the home base, knowing parents knowing how to help their child and how to help themselves creates that compassionate home base that allows the child to heal. And maybe therapy and maybe more extreme, maybe residential or
Yeah,
hospital.
sometimes it's necessary. It is absolutely sometimes necessary.
Yeah, but
But
having them home and like what you're doing, it sounds so essential. I love what you're doing.
thank you.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I don't like to try to paint a pretty picture. It is difficult, and but with support, I've never heard a parent say, "I wish we hadn't done this." You know.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that your parents are always like, "Thank you for teaching me these skills." Because yeah, there's no handbook for this necessarily,
Mm,
and it requires help from the outside to
it
help
does.
families.
Yep. One caveat I want to make is that to be very clear that we don't make our children eat, we help them eat. And that means that we never physically force food. It's just applying pressure and leverage and being just like eternal. What I tell my clients sometimes is, when there's a dog that doesn't exactly beg, but they sit there and they look and they hope
Mhm. Yeah, my dog does that.
really hard. They hope really hard. Yeah, they just never go away. That's the kind of expectancy. What it is that they expect. They expect that eventually you're going to give them a bite, and we expect that you're going to eat your food.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
with love. And I'm here and I'm going to help guide you through this so that we can get through this together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, it sounds like we answered all the questions that we had.
All the questions. Yeah.
So if there are families out there that are struggling with this very issue, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah.
What's your website or so?
Yes. So to get like a quick start guide, they can go to spoonfulofcourageforparents.com. If they just want to schedule an appointment with me, I also have a site that is CMW Consulting. dot help. I've had to remember the
What is
thing.
that dot? Yeah.
Yeah, what is that dot?
Well,
And
I'll go.
I have Spoonful of Courage for Parents Instagram as well.
Oh, awesome. I'll go ahead and write all those out and put them in the links below this YouTube video so people can click on them hopefully easily. And I really appreciate your time today. This has been a great
I I
discussion.
appreciate it too. It's been fun and it's actually helped me understand myself a little bit better. So that's cool.
I'm constantly growing and learning every day a little bit more. And yeah, whatever we can do to just have that self-understanding too, just as
Hmm.
coaches, helping other people, I think that makes us better.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
I know.
All right. Bye bye.